Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. Thank you for joining us today. So today's guest is a friend of mine. It is Benji Markoff. He is the co-founder of a company called FounderShield. They're an insurance company for startups and founders, essentially, based in New York, a little over 20 employees, growing very quickly. I think Benji told me they work with about 2,500 clients right now. And we're going to talk about all that in a second. So let's welcome Benji. How are you, man?
I'm doing good, Jonah. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So talk to us about what exactly FounderShield does and who you're helping.
Yeah, so FounderShield focuses on creating a much more seamless and intuitive process around purchasing and managing insurance. FounderShield specifically focuses on servicing high-growth venture-backed tech companies or high-growth tech companies as a whole. And so really that means companies that have, rapid growth opportunity, who are raising capital from the VC community, and really ranging anywhere from just raised their first round of angel funding all the way up to on their way to the IPO.
Okay. And what types of insurance are you guys typically writing for them? Is this key man insurance or business liability or health?
Yeah, so we focus on two fronts. We focus on the anything commercial insurance related. So that's really anything related to the liability of the ongoing day-to-day operations of the business. So that falls in line with general liability insurance or directors and officers insurance or even key man insurance. And then we have a separate division that focuses on health and benefits as well.
So is this process completely automated through your website, or do you guys have kind of salespeople or customer support people helping out?
Yeah, we like to say we're a tech-enabled service. So a large portion of the process is automated and online and enabled by the technology that we built internally. But we do have a sales team and a support team. We think that's really important, especially with high-growth tech companies where their risks are constantly evolving and changing as they continue to scale and grow their operations. And a lot of times we're dealing with first or second time business owners or operators and first or second time insurance purchasers. And so they really want to have kind of a more hands-on experience as it relates to, purchasing and securing insurance.
Now, who's typically driving the process? Is it the founders that realize they need insurance, or is it the investors that tell the founders they need insurance?
It's a combination of both, actually. So investors typically, when they provide either larger seed, definitely Series A round of funding, one of the requirements post-funding is that their portfolio companies purchase directors and officers insurance and key person life insurance. So that does kind of drive part of the process. And then other times it's contract related. So definitely in the B2B space with startups, they, are getting into a contract, let's say with a Walmart, and they have all these very specific insurance requirements that the founders had never heard of before. And so they'll come and reach out to us and ask for help there. And, the third, point of contact third process is us reaching out to them. We know what these types of companies need and when they need them. And so we have a really good grasp of that. And, we're always there to help them out with those decision-making processes.
So for a couple of the insurances that you mentioned, directors and officers insurance and key man insurance, is it the individuals that are typically paying those premiums, or is it the company itself?
The company's always paying these premiums. So anything on the commercial front, the companies are purchasing the insurance.
Okay. And then what about like the life insurance?
Well, we're only dealing with the key person life insurance. And so key person life insurance is life insurance that is purchased by the company on behalf of key individuals within the company. Okay. So it's also kind of purchased by the company.
Okay, right. So this isn't the type of insurance where you go out and get run over in the middle of the street. The policy is going to your family, because that would be more of an individual policy or personal policy.
Exactly. Companies sometimes have contracts associated with those types of events, in which if those types of tragic events occur, there might be a portion of that insurance that goes directly to the family. But that's on a per company basis.
Okay. So on the website, you guys have these three main packages, and I'm sure it varies based on different factors in most cases, but at least to kind of start with, I guess, to give people an idea, you have the bootstrapper package, the venturer, and the premier. The bootstrapper is, those companies of under 10 employees raised under $1 million in funding. Venturer is 10 to 50 employees. 1 to 30 million in funding, and then Premier is 50 or more employees and 30 or more in funding. Kind of what are the different needs of the founders in each of those phases? Maybe start with bootstrapper. Like I'm starting a company from scratch. It's me, the co-founder. Maybe we have one full-time employee. We've raised $500,000 from friends and family or some angels. Like, what do we need? What do we need to be thinking in terms of insurance?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's really not what the founder needs. It's more so what the company needs, right? Because the company is the entity that you're insuring, and at the end of the day, it really depends on what vertical you're in or how you're operating as a business, right? If you're one or two employees and you're pre-product, you just have an office space, maybe a shared space at a WeWork, maybe you just need general liability insurance and workers' comp insurance for your employees. If you're that type of company in that bootstrapper stage, but you are let's say an on-demand delivery business, and let's say you're a competitor to Postmates as an example, there's other exposures and risk exposures that you want to make sure you're insuring for. One would be like hired and non-owned auto insurance if your independent contractors are driving vehicles on the company's behalf, right, for providing the service that the company's providing. So it really varies based off of what the company's actually doing. The three packages that we created really were created because we felt that there was a lack of education in the insurance space and a lack of understanding of what I need as a business. And everything on our site is really focused on educating the consumer and really helping them understand what insurance is, when it's appropriate to purchase it, and what it actually does.
And this is kind of a fun question that I was looking forward to asking, what are some of the biggest mistakes or failures you've seen founders make or companies make by not having insurance in place when something went wrong?
Well, I mean, the mistake is in the question you just asked, right? If they don't have insurance and something went wrong, then they're paying out of pocket for something that they could have easily, had covered by an insurance policy, right? You have, we've dealt with a lot of clients who have come to us after they didn't have insurance and they had a claim and they were out $10,000 or $15,000. And then we provided them with a quote that was, $1,500. So, net savings of $13,000 and change for something that they could have easily gotten from the beginning. I think more important than that is, the decisions that I see or the mistakes I see that founders or companies make early on, a lot of times relates to price shopping on the insurance front. There are maybe 8 to 10 different insurance products that companies typically buy, but at the end of the day, within each product line, it varies drastically depending on the insurance carrier, depending on each line item of coverage within each policy. And so price can be deceiving, right? There could be one policy that's $1,000, but it might not really cover anything, right? If you read the policy language, it could actually exclude a lot of your actual business operations and exposures. So really kind of bringing someone in who actually understands how the makeup of this language is absolutely critical when you're deciding what to purchase from an insurance standpoint.
Have you seen businesses actually shut down because something happened and they didn't have insurance and they essentially didn't have the capital to cover it?
I've definitely seen it before. To be honest, most of the time I don't see it personally because if they're shutting down because of that, they're not coming to us for help on the insurance front at that point. But yeah, I mean, you see it all the time. I mean, you see it with even with larger companies where they might have had insurance, but they didn't have the right insurance or the right amount of insurance, and they're forced to shut down. We've dealt with companies like that where they needed to restructure post some large claim or loss because their insurance wasn't put together properly.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of the Lupton Group and host of the Startup Sense podcast. Are you struggling to find the right tech team to build your company's website or mobile app? Maybe you've developed a product but need help with your go-to-market strategy, including branding and marketing. Well, stop worrying because my team at the Lupton Group can assist you with all of those needs. We specialize in helping entrepreneurs and startups of all sizes launch and grow their businesses. For a free consultation, you can email me at jonahlupton@gmail.com or visit our website at luptongroup.co. How are you guys typically finding your clients?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we covered a little bit of that before, but I know in our pre-call you mentioned that you guys are having some success with your blog in terms of, showing up in Google searches.
Yeah, so I think content is king as it relates to these types of service-based businesses. And the one thing about insurance that we realized really early on was, when people think of insurance, they just think of health insurance. They think of personal lines of insurance, homeowners insurance, the stuff that affects basically every individual. There are very few people, if you look at the grand scheme of things, that actually purchase business insurance, right? And so, creating content on our website that focus on educating them in, with real daily examples and language that actually made sense and not really industry language, was a key component to kind of our blog and content strategy. And I think early on, we just wanted to put that content out there. It wasn't about, optimizing things for SEO. And eventually we started noticing just a pattern of clients coming in, whether it was 5, 10, 15, 20 new potential leads a day coming in, just by reading our blog posts. And so we really started to focus heavily on, producing that type of content.
And who runs your blog? Do you guys have one dedicated person on your team, or is it more of a team effort?
So we have one person on our team that kind of manages and runs it, but everyone on the team really contributes to it. And we try and incentivize our team to contribute content to the blog. We have a rewards program associated with content contribution. And I honestly think it's a really great training ground for both current team members and new team members, because it forces them to, really dig deep and think about what type of content they want to produce on the blog, and actually do the research behind it. So they're really self-educating themselves on, insurance trends and different potential kind of questions that clients might ask, and, being very thoughtful in how they, provide content and answer those questions.
Do you have any, kind of feeling or handle on what the ROI on that blog might be? I know it's kind of hard for, CEOs to figure this out. I mean, have you tried to figure out how many clients you guys have acquired through the blog, and then how much time and effort and money you put into it?
Yeah, I guess we have some of those numbers. We probably could do a better job of that. It's, one of the problems when you're, a fast growing company and you're hiring a lot of people is you always have to kind of prioritize what things you can focus on. But I would say at this point, probably around 40 to 50% of all new business leads come in directly through our website, and that's really directly through our blog, because we really just started actually a week or two ago doing any sort of paid content. So the ROI on that is definitely high. I don't know if I could put a number on it right now, but it's something we want to figure out a little bit more.
Have you guys started doing any sponsored ads or promoting on LinkedIn?
We tested a little bit on LinkedIn. We actually just launched a few campaigns on Facebook, and we're playing around with that. The past couple weeks have actually been really successful as it relates to our Facebook content. So we're kind of going with like one medium at a time.
On Facebook, are you guys using a video, or are you promoting the blog, or what are you using to attract people?
So we're kind of writing specific content, and then redirecting people from Facebook onto that content.
Okay, gotcha. So earlier you said, what was it? You said something that I wanted to kind of expand upon. I forget what it was. Oh, okay. What are you focused on? You mentioned that kind of the ROI is kind of hard to wrap your head around that, but you said you're focused on other things. What are the 2 or 3 things that you kind of come into work every day on and plan on working on?
So for me personally, as CEO, it changes and evolves over time. So early on in the company, all I was focused on was sales driving revenue. And now that we have like 10 or 11 account execs and people on the sales team, I spend a lot of my time trying to optimize kind of their environment so that they can get perform at peak levels. And it's really important to kind of be, that manager and that mentor towards them, and be available to them. So top priority is always being available to the rest of the team. So kind of setting time aside where I do nothing but just answer questions for everyone else is really important. Number 2, we're really focused on expansion. So FounderShield, was started, that was our focus in the tech vertical, tech and venture-backed startup vertical. We've actually now launched 2 new verticals outside of that. One is called Reshield, which focuses on large multifamily commercial real estate portfolios. And the other one is called Alpha Root, which focuses on cannabis and agriculture. Both tech-enabled insurance brokerages, same ethos as the FounderShield business. But really, my focus is really on expanding both from a vertical expansion and also international expansion.
Okay. Now you started FounderShield about 4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
What have you kind of learned in that time period that's made you a better CEO today?
Oh man, I'm going to try and think of stuff that's not cliche that everyone always says. Because obviously, patience. I think the biggest thing I learned was I did not know what type of emotional roller coaster starting a company was going to be. I thought it was going to require a lot of hard work and head down, doing 18 hours a day, and I was totally ready for that. The emotional roller coaster and really like the daily emotional roller coaster of the highs and lows of having your own company wasn't something I was initially prepared for. And so, being able to deal with that and deal with the highs and lows and know how to, face those things head on has been a very important lesson for me, because it's something that I can impart on the rest of my team, because it's something that everyone on any team always is dealing with. And so that experience has been very helpful for me. I think the second thing, like I mentioned before, is prioritizing the team before your own personal work. When you're a founder or CEO, your team looks up to you and they want to, I guess, be inspired by you, but they want your help. And as a CEO, you have a lot of other stuff you want to accomplish, want to do as well. But reprioritizing things so that you focus on them first and focus on their success first is really important. I think, once your employees are successful and are succeeding in their roles, you're going to be successful as a CEO and you're going to be successful within your organization.
When you're hiring people, what are some of the things that you look for? What are the traits that you kind of prioritize?
Number one is culture. The first thing I tell anyone we interview, and we're actually in a mad rush interviewing process right now. We're trying to hire 10 new roles. But the first thing is all focused on culture. The thing I tell potential employees is that I come to work every day and I love it. I mean, it's a thing I am most passionate about. It's what drives me every day. And I want that same feeling, for the next 20 years. And the reason why I love it so much is because I love the people that I work with, and I'm inspired by them, and they make me want to work harder and they make me want to do more. So, that cultural fit, that person that's going to add value, is super critical in the hiring process. The second thing is hard work. I think with hard work, you can really accomplish everything. I think there's like a baseline of intelligence level that, one has to have in order to be successful in any company, but, specifically FounderShield. But it's the, relentless hard work that's instilled in them that they're going to, put out, that is absolutely critical to being successful in our company.
What are some of the roles that you guys are hiring for right now? Maybe there's a potential employee listening to the podcast. So what's the kind of the roles, and then what would some of the criteria be in terms of, do they have to have an insurance background, or could they, be coming out of sales in some other industry and possibly use that to be successful with FounderShield?
Yeah. So the first thing is, I started this company without an insurance background at all, for better or worse. So we don't require that insurance background. I think it's a plus, but it's definitely not a requirement. Half of our team did not have an insurance background beforehand. As it relates to specific roles, we're always looking to hire great salespeople. We're very much focused on hiring people for our customer success team, which handles our clients as they renew each year. We're looking for marketers, which are not traditional marketing, but insurance marketing, which basically focuses on building relationships with the insurance carriers and focusing on getting information and quotes delivered from the insurance carriers to our clients. Those are probably the three biggest roles. I'm always looking for new GMs for new divisions that we start. So we just hired a GM of our Alpha Root division. Eventually, we'll probably hire a GM for our Reshield division. As we expand into other verticals, our strategy is to hire, an individual who can kind of eventually or right away run a team and build a team within that vertical.
Okay, cool. And right now you guys are all in New York. Do you have any plans to expand to the West Coast given the high density of startups out there and venture-backed companies?
Yeah, definitely. If we found the right person to kind of set up shop out there, we are definitely looking for that person. Right now, I would say at least twice a month, some representative of FounderShield is out on the West Coast, whether it's at a conference or meeting with potential clients. So we're definitely looking for that, though.
So half the founders I bring on here have specific industry experience before they jump into their startup. Others don't, but they see an opportunity and they still jump in. So you're kind of in that second camp. So what advice would you give to someone else that came to you and said, hey, I want to jump into this industry, not necessarily insurance, but any industry, but I've never spent any time in it. I just think there's an opportunity to do something different to disrupt it. What advice would you give to them? Kind of how did you approach the insurance industry on your end?
Yeah, so my thought process, and I'm to my detriment, I'm not one to fully vet something out and go through a pros and cons list. A lot of time go off of my gut, but I knew, for me personally, I knew two things. I knew I had the ability to sell a product to businesses, and I knew all businesses purchased insurance. So right off the bat, if I was confident in myself that I could sell insurance, I knew there were people who were going to buy it. And the second thing was I knew there was, drastic and vast room for improvement in the industry as a whole. And those two things really, kind of forced my hand in jumping into this. I think the knowledge just comes over time. One thing I always tell other entrepreneurs is that you're never going to be the smartest or most knowledgeable person in any space. There's always going to be someone who knows more than you. And knowing more doesn't necessarily mean you're going to close the deal or you're going to have a better or more successful business. The thing I always tell my salespeople is that, the goal is to always know at least just 10% more than the person you're talking to on the phone. And that 10% difference really can get you to the finish line and help close that deal.
So if this is say 3 years from now, 4 years from now, whatever, this is $100 million business, what do you think you guys did right to get to that? Or what has to go right to get to that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that what would have to go right is we have to be going down the same path that we're already going down. I think a lot has gone right already. I think we would have to, I'm sure over the next 4 or 5 years, there will be 10 more fires that we're going to have to put out. And so how we put those fires out, how we pivot and make decisions on things is going to be critical. I think which verticals we go into next are going to be really important. Our decision on whether we expand internationally, I think, could be, really positive from a revenue and valuation standpoint for the company. Or maybe we make a mistake with that. And so understanding that pretty quickly when we make those decisions is absolutely critical. And I think maintaining the culture, that's been one of the hardest things I've found is that, when you're 5 people, it's really easy to have a constant vision of culture across the board, right? Because 5 people, you're probably in one room, and everyone's, getting together at the same time in the morning and working together all day and going out for drinks at night. And it's all constant. You're seeing the same people every day with, 20, 25 plus employees. Sometimes I don't even get to see some employees during the day. I'm out and they're out, whatever it may be. And so creating, maintaining that culture that we really strive for, I think is going to be super important because that's what attracts the talent that we're looking for that helps us drive this business forward.
Right. I mean, so your day, I guess, has changed a lot over the last 4 years, right? I mean, you were probably wearing many more hats 4 years ago than you are now.
Yeah, definitely. And just what my metrics that I measured success on were different as well, right? Early on, like I said, almost all of my day and my role was spent driving sales, right? We didn't raise any capital. So our revenue needed to increase so that we can hire more people. We didn't have, we chose not to have that luxury, because we really believed in the vision of the company. We really wanted to have full control over it. But yeah, the role is constantly changing. I'm sure, we had another podcast in 6 months from now, there'd probably be 5 new things that I'm doing that I'm not doing today.
If an investor came to you and said, "Hey, I want to put money into your company, call it $5 million at whatever X valuation," would you guys want to take that money, or are you kind of steadfast on staying bootstrapped at this point?
Yeah, I think it's something I always think about. The answer right now would still be no. We would pass on that. We've built up enough kind of cash in the bank to be able to support our growth right now. So cash really isn't an issue for us right now. And my question I always ask myself, and we've had a lot of investors approach us because the insurance industry is really hot right now in the VC space, and we're looked at as a leader in that space. But the thing I always ask myself is, what am I going to even do with the money, right? Someone gave me $5 million, and I don't have, and I can't find a real proper way to spend that money. It's probably a better decision to pass on that and retain that ownership.
What are the 3 most important metrics for your business? What are the 3 things that you look at on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis to determine how well you guys are doing?
Well, revenue, right? Obviously. So we look at, early on we were looking at month-over-month revenue. Now we kind of focus on quarter-over-quarter revenue growth. Our goals are still to grow yearly at around a 4x top line revenue rate.
Wow.
Very aggressive. We've hit those numbers the past 4 years, and we think we can maintain that type of growth over the next couple of years. So that's obviously really important for us. Number 2, employee happiness. We actually committed to hiring a full-time HR person, and we put in all these different kind of rewards programs and team outings and things that we think are going to continue to help with just creating the most incredible environment possible. And it's a hard thing to measure, but I think, as we kind of try and figure out new ways to measure that, it's really important to us. It's like, when you have one bad apple, one person who's upset, it brings down the rest of the team. And that brings down, production levels. And so we want to, always maintain, that super positive environment.
Yeah, I've heard Elon Musk, when someone asked him what's one advice you would have for other founders, and he said the one thing is get rid of unhappy, negative people as quickly as you can, because they can really disrupt the culture at the company. Yeah,
I mean, Elon and I didn't talk about this beforehand, but I guess we have the same advice for people. Probably one of the very few things we have in common.
Last couple questions here. Kind of, we're now a couple months into 2007, or a month and a half in. What's your number one goal for the next 10 and a half months?
Number one goal, we definitely want to hit 7-figure revenues for our 2 new verticals that we launched, for sure. Like I said, 4x top line growth within FounderShield is number 2. And then, there's some other metrics that we want to hit, and certain areas of growth outside of the U.S. that we want to focus on as well. And then we also have tech and product goals. I'm always unsatisfied with the experience. I always think that there can be massive improvement from a client standpoint, and so figuring out ways to improve that client experience through our product, through technology, is super important to us. And we have a couple metrics that we want to hit this year on that front.
Awesome. So 3 rapid fire questions to kind of end things here would be, first one, and I might have already given you the answer, is if you could be mentored by anyone, who would it be?
Does the person have to be alive, or can I go to the past?
I mean, if you know how to raise them from the dead, I guess you can name someone. Why? Who did you have in mind?
Okay, so I'll give you one alive person and one person I wish I could have been mentored by. Person that's alive right now. Okay, I guess now you're making me think of Elon Musk because he's right there in front of me. But it would probably be actually Richard Branson.
Okay.
I'm just amazed at the type of energy he has, and I was actually listening to a different podcast where he had mentioned that within the Virgin brand they own I think 300 companies.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
Do they have an insurance group?
I'm sure they have a bridal gown group as well.
Wow.
Right? It might have gone under at this point, but he had a great saying. He said something along the lines of, if you have 300 companies and one doesn't work out, you still have 299 companies. So you're still in a good place. But he just seems like someone with just an incredible energy. And I think he's in his 70s maybe at this point, and he's just still ticking and going. And the other person who I wish I could have met is an entrepreneur named Samuel Zemerai. And
Who's he?
Most people probably have not heard of him. He's the person who basically started Chiquita Banana, which beforehand was called United Fruit Company, which at the time in like the 1930s, 40s was probably the largest company in the world. And he was like an immigrant, moved to Alabama when he was 13 and basically figured out a way to take bananas that were being thrown away and create a trade route across, I guess, the southeast between like Alabama and the nearest ports. And that eventually turned into him, running the largest fruit company or largest company actually in the world. So his story is just absolutely incredible. And the determination that had to go into building that type of company and the, trials and tribulations that he had to face in order to succeed, just absolutely amazing.
Awesome. Okay. Second question would be, do you have a favorite blog or podcast?
Okay. Podcast. Well, obviously, Jonah, your podcast, but other than your podcast, I'll just go with my flavor of the month right now. I love the How I Built This podcast.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
It's just awesome. I mean, so big fan of that podcast. And then I'm a sports fanatic. I love the Bill Simmons podcast.
I haven't heard it. I actually should check that out because you're right. I'm getting kind of sick of the typical ESPN Sports Center. The hosts are getting a little stale. So listening to some
he's good. He infused a little pop culture into all of it. They actually have a whole blog called The Ringer, which is like tech and startups and sports and kind of pop culture and combines all of those, which that's what I like to read about. So.
And then last question would be, do you have any favorite, kind of SaaS product or service that you like to use to help run the company?
Well, the one that I'm most dependent on is probably Salesforce now.
Okay.
And at first I had a very much love-hate relationship with it, but the ability to kind of customize it specifically to your business has given us, tremendous growth opportunity, and it's given us the ability to grow and scale really quickly and hire fewer people. It's actually been definitely the most useful tool that we've been able to utilize as a company.
So I think this is actually something that every founder has to deal with in the very beginning is which CRM platform do they start with? There are some free ones out there, which I've used, and then there are some more expensive ones. How did you guys settle on Salesforce? And was that the first one you used, or did you switch over from another one?
Yeah, so we started with Streak, which is like a Gmail CRM. And I used to be obsessed with CRM tools early on because I've always been in sales and just always loved the ability to use technology to help my close rate. So Streak is what we used early on, and then pretty quickly we switched over to Pipedrive.
Yep.
Pipedrive is super seamless. It's easy. It's cheap. And it just looks really nice. It definitely has a much nicer UI UX experience in comparison to like a Salesforce.
Sure.
But eventually we got to a point where we needed, API integration with our product that we had built and our website. And we just needed different tools and features that no other CRM could provide us with other than Salesforce. And so our hands were forced and we had to make that switch. But it was the right decision, and it wasn't my decision. It was my co-founder's decision. He told me that we had to move on, and I was at first I fought him on it, but he was definitely right about that move because it's helped us tremendously.
Yeah, I actually had Timo, one of the co-founders of Pipedrive, on the podcast a few weeks ago, and they're crushing it. But I mean, he knows that it's even that product, as beautiful as it is and easy to use, it has limitations. I mean, Salesforce has been around for 15 or 20 years. I mean, it's obviously a much more robust platform.
Yeah, I hope Timo and the team get there. It's funny because when I first purchased Pipedrive, and it was actually for a company I was working at before I started FounderShield, I was dealing with Timo directly because they didn't have a team. They just had like 4 people in. Are they like Iceland or Estonia? Or
I think it's Estonia. Yeah, I think the engineering team is still over there.
So that's who I was just dealing with whenever I was like, had issues and need to troubleshoot something. So I was with them from the beginning. I'm still such a fan of theirs, and like I said, I think the user experience on their site is really special, and I think that if they can continue to evolve as a company, hopefully they're a powerful competitor to Salesforce.
Oh, they are. Yeah, they just raised another round of money, and I think they'll probably do at least 20 to 25 ARR this year. So yeah, they're doing pretty good. Yeah, they're off to a great start. I mean, he talked about how they got started in the beginning. It was so slow. I mean, it was just hard finding customers. And then they went through, I think it was Y Combinator or one of the other accelerators. They did a couple pivots, and then now they're just crushing it. So
that's cool. Awesome. I'm super happy for them.
We'll wrap it up there, man. Anything you want to say before we go, and certainly tell us how we can connect with you or the company online?
Yeah, sure. You can connect with us easily, FounderShield.com. If you're in real estate, reshield.com. And if you're in the agriculture or cannabis space, alpharoot.co. So connect with us anywhere there. My email is benji@foundershield.com. So feel free to hit me up if you're interested in a job, interested in chatting. I love working with entrepreneurs and love working with people that, inspire me. So, yeah, that's it. I guess any, lasting words or advice. I think hard work prevails in this industry and just in the tech and entrepreneur industry in general. So that's been my motto this whole time. And I think so far it's worked out okay for me.
Awesome, man. Well, it sounds like you guys are off to an amazing start. 4 years of success. I'm sure lots to go. So wish you the best, and feel free to come back anytime and give us some updates.
Definitely, Jonah. Thank you so much.
You got it, man. Talk to you soon, Benji. Bye.